it's so good to see such a great crowd in here. And, you know, to follow what Peter was talking about. And by the way, I want to give my personal endorsement to Peter Griscom. You guys, most of you have known me for decades, if not even 30 years. And I'm going to tell you, he's one of the best hires this company has ever made. I'm so glad that he's on board with us. And I'm so glad that he so quickly saw the vision of glycans. Because he saw it. He's done all kinds of things in his career. And then when he saw the glycans, he said, oh, there's something really happening here. This is different. This is special. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about this morning, is how different and special it is. So let's just get started. There we go. So folks, this is a new era. It's not just a new era for science, which I'm going to talk to you about this morning, but it's a new era for Manatech because of the new science. Now, there have been the same questions that I see with a lot of your faces. I've known you for many, many years. Some of you I've not even met yet, and that's great. I love that. But we've always had to go through this, how do I explain this stuff? It's so complicated. It's not like you could say to somebody, we've got the best vitamin C, because everybody knows what vitamin C is. No, you're introducing a whole brand new idea, a whole brand new concept of science that people haven't heard about, and that makes it tough for you to try and successfully build your businesses. But now there's new science that gives us a new way to talk about glycans and to reinforce not only the fact that everybody should take glycans every day, no matter how you feel. Because that's one of the big things we always get. Well, I feel okay now, so do I still need to keep taking this additive stuff? Yes. Is there science to show that? Yes, there is. So we're going to be talking about that this morning as well. I'm so glad that I can give you this message. Well, you know, it's my habit before I start a talk to lay out for everybody what we're going to talk about. Because I don't like people sort of squirming in their seats and they're thinking, is he going to say this? Is he going to say that? All right, so here's what we're going to cover. And you can see it right now in front of you, so you know where we're going in this talk. But there's also a couple of little surprises for you that are not on this list towards the end. All right, so new science means a new opportunity, especially a new opportunity for Manatech, because we are the glycan company, and we have always been the glycan company. And because we are the leaders in science and research, and because we have a product that I'm going to talk about in more detail in a few moments, that no one else on the planet can have, we will always be the leaders in glycan technology. This is one of the newest and most important areas in health that is currently known. Well, you all know about FAQs, the most frequently asked questions. And here are the most frequently asked questions that I've gotten since I did my very first Manatech lecture in my clinic, my old clinic, which, boy, I miss that place, I loved it. I had a teaching center built on to the end of my clinic, and I taught doctors once a month that would come in there and pay me $125, factor with inflation now, because that was 30 years ago, okay, per a seat to listen to me talk to them about nutrition and dietary supplements. And from that very first lecture all the way through today, it's always been the same questions, the ones that you see right now. That's never changed. We're going to be able to address most of those effectively by the time we're done with this presentation this morning. That, by the way, should make me excited all by itself. All right, now you've been frustrated before. I know you have, I sure have. You know, because for me, there's science and then there's everything else. And there's science, and that's the truth that you can prove, that you can verify, that you can validate. And then there's what regulators say, well, you can't say this, and you can't say that, and you can't say this, and that implies this. And you're going, oh, gosh. And imagine how I feel when I'm trying to figure out how to teach Manatech Associates. When I know the truth, I know the science, but oh, well, you can't use that word, you can't say this, you can't say that. So scientific truth and regulatory regulations that we have to follow, not always the same. So I'm going to give you a way this morning to sort of work around that in a compliant way, because being compliant is essential to our business. So you have to do this in a compliant way, but also it has to be compelling. Nobody buys something unless there's something in it for them, right? They have to say, well, what's in this for me? What's this going to do for me? And that's the sales part of it. And we can do that through science as well. So let's start with my favorite topic in the world, science. That's where we want to start. All right, we're going to talk about what is a glycan. Well, a glycan is a scientific term that describes any sugar or assembly of sugars in a free form or attached to other molecules. Now that is from a science textbook. You may see this defined in different ways in different sources. You'll see that some will say, well, if it's a polysaccharide or a oligosaccharide, it's a glycan, but if it's a monosaccharide, it's not. So look at the definition. Any sugar, that's one. Any sugar or any assembly, that's more than one. Sugars in free form or attached to other molecules. All right? Now, some of you won't care about that definition, but some of you care very much about it. And I need to talk with both sides of the audience for that, okay? All right, so we're talking about not sugar like the sugar you use to sweeten your drinks or your food, but biologically active carbohydrates. So you want to get, the people are going to say sugar, and they're going to look up on the internet, they're going to see the word sugar, and they're going to go, oh my God, this is bad for you. It makes you fat. It gives you blood sugar problems, blah, blah, blah. No, not that kind of sugar. And we've done the science to know that our sugar doesn't do those things. All right, so we want you to use the word glycan. Now, you've heard me talk about the modern diet many times. And the modern diet, common sense. You don't even have to do a scientific study, just common sense. Do we eat the same way our ancestors ate? Well, of course not. It's ridiculous. We don't. We don't, we can't. We're not hunter-gatherers. In our modern society, we have to move fast. We have to always be going, always be doing. We're busy people. We can't spend the whole day, 18 hours a day, walking through the wilderness trying to find fruits or nuts or seeds or scavenge for meat. We can't do that. So our diet is different. Our diet is processed. And our diet doesn't have the variety of foods that our ancestors ate. Therefore, the nutrients don't go into our body because they're not in the diet to begin with. And I have a separate lecture I do on that, but we won't do that this morning. All right, so with this in mind, the modern diet is different, and new science tells us that as we age, we are losing our ability to make the glycans we need, and new science tells us that we are increasingly, as we age, and I'll give you a chronological look on a different slide in a few moments, tells us that as we age, glycans that are bad for you, yes, there are glycans that are bad for you. And the glycans that are bad for you increase as we age, and the glycans that are good for you decrease as we age. Now, would that be a reason to take good glycans every day? I would think so, all by itself, even before I tell you about the science. All right, people are getting way too much of the unhealthy sugars. Way too much. And we're talking about pounds or kilos per year. It's a ridiculous amount. We know that healthy glycans are absolutely necessary for cellular communication. We've been talking about that since 1995. We know that they're absolutely necessary for proper immune function. We've been talking about that since 1995. And we know that our glycans don't raise blood sugar. And we've been talking about that since 1995 as well. Now, I want you to think, and I'm going to say this word several times this morning, and I want you to start thinking these words and repeating these words in your mind, because, and I've been writing a new book off on the side, which will talk about how repetition affects our psychology and convinces us to do things that we may or may not want to do. That's a different book. And by the way, I also have a new book I'm writing, which I couldn't get done in time for this event. I'm sorry I couldn't, but I couldn't. And it's, if you remember my Missing Nutrients book from years ago, it's like that. It'll be short, simple, easy to read that you can show to others. And it's going to be about the new science of glycans and what I'm talking about this morning. I'm sorry I've had some events in my life that have just sort of delayed me on the schedule that I had set up, but I will get that done for you soon. All right, so what do glycans do? Well, we know that glycans are on the surface of antibodies. We know new things about the way glycans function in the immune system that I didn't even know a year ago. And I make it a point to read scientific studies 7 days a week, holidays included. I read new studies. And no human being can keep up with them now. In fact, I've been encouraged to use AI a lot, and I don't trust the AI yet, but I'm sorry, I just don't trust it yet. So I asked the AI to do a particular search for me, and I gave it a nervous breakdown. I mean, it actually froze and crashed. Because there was, and when I'm typing to it, I'm saying, what's up? Are you moving? Are you functioning? And there was so many papers that even the AI couldn't handle. That's where we're at with science right now. And it's moving at the speed of light. It's moving so fast. It's just astounding. Let's move forward to the next slide, please. There we go. So, you've heard me talk about IgG before in my presentation on our product called Immunostar. That's a really good video, by the way. You should watch it. It's only 11 minutes. And IgG, immunoglobulin G, is your most important immunoglobulin in your immune system. It is the only immunoglobulin that is found in every single part of your body, absolutely every part. If there's fluid, there's IgG. And every part of your body's got fluid. So, IgG addresses a spectrum of immune issues where each of the other immunoglobulins, because there's quite a few of them, each of the others addresses a section of immune function, but IgG does the broad spectrum. That's why it's in everything. So that's important. Then it's important to know that glycosylation, that means glycans bonded to the IgG. That IgG glycosylation now is a well-verified fact. It's not a question. We know that this is the case, and we are knowing more every day about why the immune system functions the way it does when it functions correctly because of IgG glycosylation. And why it doesn't function correctly because of the lack of that glycosylation. So we know that if we replenish, and we know this by study, and I'll show you the studies in a second, if we replenish our glycans for the IgG glycosylation, this is one of our most important factors, not just for the immune system, but for healthy aging. Now, those of you who watched my video on aging, and you remember in that video I said we start to age as soon as we're conceived. That's true. Now, we think about it as growth. We're growing until we're 25, but actually we're aging already. And I'll show you the chronology here in a moment on how this happens at each sort of plateau in your life. Now, one of the studies I'll talk about this morning, they coined a new phrase. By the way, if you're a doctoral level researcher, you're allowed to make up new words. That's true, it's true. And I see one of my good friends, Dr. Steve, he's going, yeah, that's true, that's true. So they made up a new word, inflammation, or inflammaging. Inflammaging, that's even hard to say. And the idea is the researchers tied together inflammation as it works with aging, okay? And they found out some pretty interesting things I'll cover for you in a moment. We do know that as we age, our immune system becomes less robust. It is less efficient and slower in being able to make repairs. And you have cells that need to be repaired every moment of every day of your life. Now, you want that to be quick. You don't want it to be slow, and you don't want it to be ineffective. You want it to be as effective as it can be. Now, here's 3 studies, and I don't expect everybody to go out and read these, but here's 3 studies that are very important to the talk this morning, and you keep seeing the letters GRT. In science, it's called glycan replacement therapy. Our legal department, ever vigilant and making sure that they are protecting us, they said you can't use the word replacement, so I suggested we use the word replenishment. And now you might say it means the same thing. Well, listen, I'm not a legal person, okay? So we're going with replenishment. We're still going to say GRT, because GRT, it's what it is. And we're going to be the leaders in GRT in the world, because we're the only ones that have ambertose. All right, so Camiro looked at the immune system and aging, and how could we affect aging in a positive way of the immune system in aging if we were to add good glycans to the test subjects. And this team found out that yes, there was in fact a benefit to adding positive glycans to the aging person or aging test subject. Sometimes they've tested animals. And they found the same thing, so this is important. In a study by Zhang studied very specific immune cells, not the general immune function, but very specific immune cells. And Zhang found out the same thing. And then a scientist named Mikulski, well, that team looked at this and said, you know what? We've discovered in our study, now this is not a Manatech study, this is Mikulski and his team, but this study, they found that glycans, and listen to this, and you should be excited about this, I hope you are, that glycans are a more accurate biomarker of aging than telomeres. I'll have time for the translation to get in there. More accurate than telomeres. That has been the standard all this time. Well, you know, your telomeres, they're shortening and blah, blah, blah. Glycans are a more accurate gauge. And we can measure it. That's very cool. And then another scientist, Ravi Chandran, he looked at the metabolism of aging test subjects. Now we know, as we age, all of us who have passed the age of 40, which for some of us was some time ago, but all of us who have passed the age of 40, we know the metabolism begins to slow down. And there have been all kinds of explanations. But guess what Ravi Chandran found out? Glycans were super important in this process. This research has opened up a whole new area for us for possibilities of metabolic problems. That's exciting all by itself. Folks, this science, I hope that I'm not going too high with some of this stuff, but this is so exciting. This new science is so exciting. Our possibilities, our new opportunities are so powerful. We've never had anything this powerful in a single step in science since I've been involved in this area. This is amazing stuff. We need to go forward with the slide. Thank you. So, we know the basics. Supporting immune function, now we know metabolic function. We also know from another study about joint health and skin health, the resilience of your skin, and of course, healthy aging overall, which all those things are affected as we age. Ambrotose is a multi-glycan formula. Now, a lot of people get this confused, and some of it's our fault at Manatech, by the way we've marketed the product over the years, all right? So I'm going to give you a couple of quick definitions here, and hopefully this will make more sense. We talk about Manipole for years. We've talked about Manipole as mannose from aloe, which it is, but it's actually ace mannan from aloe. Now, I can't give you a diagram right now, but I'm going to try and make this simple so everyone can picture this. Everyone knows what the human spine looks like, right? Your backbone, everyone knows what the backbone looks like. Now, try and picture ribs coming off of your backbone, all right? So the backbone is mannose. And the ribs coming off are a whole bunch of other glycans, which means that Manipole is not a monosaccharide product, it is a multi-glycan product, because there's all kinds of glycans that are attached to that backbone of mannose. That's what makes ace mannan. So even Manipole, don't think of it as a single product, think of it as a multi-glycan product. But Ambrotose is the optimal multi-glycan product because of all of the different glycans that are in there and all their various spines and backbones. That's just the way it appears in my mind when I'm trying to make it into a non-scientific view. So we have this and no one else does. We're the only company that has a plant-based glycan product, multi-glycan product that was specifically designed for cellular communication. No other company has that. No other company can have that. Our formulation is proprietary. Patent or no patent, it can't be copied. We have it. We're it. We're the only company. That's important, especially if you're a business owner. There's no point in trying to build a business if you're selling something that everyone else can sell. And you can argue, well, our vitamin C is better than their vitamin C. Who cares? You want a product that no one else can have, and we have it. Think about Ambrotose, not just as a multi-glycan. Think about Ambrotose as your GRT kit, your glycan replenishment kit in one container. What should every human being on planet Earth take every day? And I don't care how you feel, because the science tells us different. Even if you think you're okay, you take that GRT kit every day. It's called Ambrotose. And only we have it, and that's exciting. So, we are the leaders in the industry. We're the only company in the entire industry that can say we started our own field of science, or I should correctly say we pioneered a new field of science called nutritional glycobiology. None of our competitors can say that. Folks, we're the science company. None of the other competitors can even come close to what we do scientifically. And you need to be excited about that. So, the only plant-based product, Ambrotose multi-glycan formula. I want you to please start thinking about multi-glycan. Think about it like people say multivitamin, multi-mineral. Because you know what? Multi-glycan is as important. We may have studies at some point that tell us even more important. I would at this moment argue, just my personal opinion, more important because you can get along when you're low on certain vitamins and certain minerals, but when certain glycans are missing, you don't function very well. So that's just my personal argument, but we'll see about the studies as they go forward. So again, subtle changes between what we're doing. I want you to be compliant. The scientific papers say replacement therapy. We're going to say replenishment therapy, but it means the same thing, okay? And Ambrotose multi-glycan formula is your GRT kit, your personal GRT kit that everyone should have in their home every day, everybody, no exceptions. So we know that our glycans change, the glycosylation changes as we age. We know that we see certain declines as we age, And now we're beginning to see the connection between glycosylation with various positive, necessary glycans and the glycans that you shouldn't have too much of. As we age, we have they call it the glycan drift. So what we see as the test subjects are aging, they're producing less of the good glycans, more of the inflammatory glycans. And how many of you have experienced, some of my friends that are in my basic age group, and older for some of you, I noticed that I had all the energy in the world up to about age 68. And then all of a sudden I didn't. And I noticed at about that time, which by the way was a good 15 years in advance of where it should have had for the average person, because I've been taking a multi-glycan formula all this time. Probably shouldn't give it personal. Hope I don't get in trouble for that. Anyway, that's just the way I look at it, because I've been taking amyloidose complex since amyloidose complex was invented back in 1995. So with this in mind, we see this drift. The bad glycans are increasing. These are glycans that when you get out of bed in the morning, you're going, oh gosh, oh man, tough this morning, right? That's because your body isn't producing what it needs to produce. It's not producing what it used to produce. That's part of the aging process. What if you got up in the morning and you said, darn, I feel great this morning. Whoa, let's take on the day, right? What if you felt like that? And you were over 70. Wouldn't that be great? Doesn't everyone want to look forward to that? Sure, of course. Every glycan plays its own role. No single glycan does every job in the body. This is why you need a multi-glycan formula. You need a multi-glycan formula. No one glycan can do it. So these companies who will say to you, well, we have mannose from aloe, so we're exactly like Mannatech. No, you are nothing like Mannatech. You can't even begin to touch what we have. We are the ones with the GRT kit, the personal GRT kit. So, with this in mind, reinforcing all these areas of your health, this is what you want a multi-glycan formula for. And Manipul, remember, don't think of it as a single sugar or glycan product. It is a multi all by itself. There are many glycans attached to the spine of the mannose, making it a multi-glycan formula. We know now about the biomarkers of aging, and they can be measured using glycans. Wouldn't it be good if you had a way, and by the way, Dr. Marcia Schaefer will be talking briefly this afternoon with some new research that she's going to be doing in the aging area. Wouldn't it be good if you had a way to show somebody that taking a multi-glycan formula actually improved their biomarkers of aging? Wouldn't that be good? None of us want to age faster than we have to. And it's a shame, you know, there's an old joke about youth is wasted on the young. Some of you have heard that joke before. So you get up to a certain age and you don't notice a thing, everything's fine, you think you're invincible, nothing's ever going to change. And then one day it changes. You just wake up one morning and things have changed. And you hit that plateau. And folks, it's going to happen. But have it happen gracefully. Listen, my personal goal for longevity is 147. Now, you might say, what do you base that on? And believe it or not, I base it on science. I base it on the cellular potential of our glands. We have the potential to make it that long, and by God, I'm going to make it that long. And I want you to make it that long. And I want everybody to make it that long. And I want you to feel great when you make it that long. When you open up your eyes on January 1st of the next century and say, wow, what a great life this is. I want you to experience that. And I believe it's possible. You think I'm joking? I believe it's possible. If you give your body what it needs, it will do what it's designed to do. But it can only do it if you give it what it needs. Now, I promise you a little surprise. And you don't have to agree with this, by the way. This is just my stab at it. Some of you know that when I left my practice, before I accepted a job at Manatech, I thought I'd better become an associate. If I'm going to help an associate, I need to know what the heck it is to be an associate. I need to know what kind of stresses and problems associates have. I need to know what kind of objections they face. That'll help me teach them better. That'll help me help them better. So I became an associate. Failed miserably for about 6 months, let me tell you. I was awful in the beginning. But eventually, I became one of Manatech's top business builders. And I still wear my ring with pride, my ring of honor. I know what it takes to become one of Manatech's top business builders. I know what it takes. I know what you need. Now, you may disagree with what I'm about to show you. It's okay. It's just a suggestion. In sales, now I know I always have associates who say, oh my God, Dr. Nugent, don't say sales, don't say money, don't say business. We want people to see you as a pure scientist. Yeah, I'm a scientist and I'm also a human being. And our business works through our method of distribution. That means you can't go to a store and buy it. You can't just go on the internet and buy it. You have to work through an associate. If we're going to make the world healthy, that means you have to be able to do that as associates. So, an easier way maybe. Since 1995, people have been saying to me, and especially every time we get a new marketing director, the new marketing director says, can you write me what's called an elevator pitch? Can you give me a very short way that's so short to describe Ambertose that anybody can say it in an elevator in between floors? Well, before you do the elevator pitch, in sales, there's something called the short hook. The short hook, why does he know so much about sales? I've studied that area of psychology as well. Many of you know I've studied a whole bunch of areas of psychology, because everything you do is about psychology. If you're going to convince people, it's psychology. If you're going to influence people, it's psychology. Everything's about psychology. So, they've been asking me this, and I always fail, because how the heck do I explain something that nobody ever heard of before, and nobody understands it? It's too darn complicated, even for doctors. Well, here's a short hook. What if one of the most important things your body needed was a sugar your cells use to talk to each other? Now, the purpose of a short hook is to get somebody's attention. Once you get their attention, you can give them the pitch. All right, so that's the hook. Hooks are always one sentence. All right, a pitch is usually multiple sentences, but still short, very short. Here's my version of the pitch. You're welcome to use this. You can take it and do whatever you like with it, or you can say, you know what, that's an awful pitch, I don't like it. But let's go through this for a minute. Have you ever heard of glycans? Most people haven't. But your body uses them every second to communicate. As we age, we don't make enough of the right ones. And that's the one reason we slow down, or just don't bounce back like we used to. Manatech developed a plant-based product to help replenish those critical sugars. It's called a multi-glycan replenishment therapy. It's not medicine. It's not hype. It's real science. It's helping people to feel younger from the inside out. And if you're into wellness or helping others, I'd love to show you we're doing with this product. It's truly next generation health. Now that's my pitch. You can make any variation you like, but the point is, if you're using glycan replenishment therapy, and if you're using aging, you avoid all the pitfalls of talking about health problems, don't you? And at the same time, everyone knows that as they're aging, they know that all those things they're concerned about are happening within the aging process, don't they? So think about it. Compliant, short, compelling. We have the GRT kit. You can say to them, we at Manatech have your personal GRT kit. It's called Amritose Multi-Glycan Formula. You may like the pitch or not, but that's the way it is for me today. So folks, new science has given us new opportunity. Thank you very much, folks.